everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. The energy this week is pretty big, and that's because we are leading up to the full moon plus lunar eclipse in Taurus that's happening on Saturday, October 28th. And by the way, there is a spirit circle that day if you'd like to join us to hear more about the energy of this moon, how to work with it, and get guidance about how to move forward in time, because we've got some big things coming up energetically, as well as psychic Q&A. You can join me for the full moon spirit circle at going to the link right here in the description below. Okay, so we have a big energy coming up because we've got this big lunar eclipse happening on Saturday right before Halloween. So we're right in that corridor where the veil between worlds is already starting to thin. There's one thing. The next thing is this particular full moon lunar eclipse is in Taurus, and it's going to be the last one in Taurus for several decades. So it really is the end of a book. It's a story that's coming to an end. So there's a big closure energy with this particular full moon and lunar eclipse coming up. Now, what is Taurus pointing to? So Taurus is pointing to what we value. It's pointing to the work that we do. It's pointing to relationships. It points to money. It points to the earth itself. So there is definitely a big energy. I would say that there's going to be some endings and beginnings around values in particular. Something is shifting here. And I think it's shifting for the higher, because again, there's nowhere to go but up. We're going up in this energy, not down. So some big things coming to a close, maybe even with relationships as well, resolutions happening, as well as new beginnings. So I find it to be extra important with this particular lunation to look at what house it is affecting in your personal chart. So you want to look at where Taurus is in your natal chart, and that'll let you know where the big wrap-up energy is happening personally for you. It's going to be different for each one of us. And I go through that in the spirit circle as well. So if you're not familiar or you don't know how to look it up, I can help you out at the spirit circle for that. But if you do know your natal chart, look at where Taurus is in your chart, and that's going to help you figure out what area of your life has a big wrapping up, a big culmination of energy. It's going to help you know what the universe is pointing at you let go of, so that you can move forward more easily into the next chapter of your life. So now I want to share a message with you from my team in spirit, and this time it came in the form of a dream. So I do get a lot of messages from spirit in my dreams, and which I believe we all do, by the way. I mean, there are so many different types of dreams that we have, and sometimes our dreams are the psychological sorting that we go through as our subconscious mind processes everything that we've been going through in the day. Sometimes we have visitations, sometimes we're going to other dimensions. But last night I had a really interesting dream with a spirit guide, a spirit animal. And I actually have quite a few spirit messenger animals come through my dreams, and last night's was really interesting, and I wanted to share it with you and then break down with you what I believe that message was saying. So in my dream, I'm in a desert-like place. It feels like possibly somewhere in the Middle East, like Egypt, and it felt like the current time period. It didn't feel like the past, but the buildings I was looking at looked there was something very ancient about them. They looked like they were made out of stone, like they had been carved right out of a rock. And I can't remember why I was there. There were other people there too. Really didn't remember what was going on prior to this moment where I was walking around and all of a sudden I'm flanked on either side by two large animals. To my left, there is a lion and it's flanking me, and to my right is another animal, which for a while I had assumed was another lion, but it turned out to be an animal that I couldn't identify. And they were on either side of me and pushing into me so that they were forcing me to walk in a specific direction. They were walking me into a specific direction. And I remember my initial reaction was one of like, oh my God, these are deadly animals and I could die. And so my initial reaction was to be afraid. And they kept walking me forward, and it was so visceral, this dream. I could literally feel these animals pressing into my hips. I could feel their hip bones moving against my skin. It was really wild. And all I could think to myself was, I need to calm down. So I remember I was like walking kind of with my hand on my heart, and I was thinking, I just need to be calm in my thoughts, and that calmness will translate to these animals and they won't attack, because I didn't understand what was happening. All I know is that I was being forced to walk in a specific direction, and the animals walked me up to this building that had multiple levels. And so they kept guiding me to walk up all these levels of this building until we got to that top level. And when we got to the top level, the unidentified animal had walked off, but the lion was still with me. And the lion had started to walk in a circle, like all cats do when they're about to settle down. Sometimes they kind of walk in a circle, and I just didn't know what to do. I just remember feeling like I am still worried. I still don't feel completely sure this animal's intentions, but I'll just follow it where it goes and I won't fight. I'm just going to go with it. And so the lion walks around in a circle. I walk with it. It lays down. I lay down with it. And I'm trying to figure out, like, can I leave now that it's laying down? Or so I'm kind of settling, but trying to figure out what to do next. And the next thing I know, the lion grabs my hand in its mouth, and I can feel the teeth going into my hand. I can feel like the moisture and the heat inside the mouth. I could feel the tongue. It was really wild, and I had this awareness that this lion could literally snap my hand right off, like just like that. But instead of that happening, it was holding my hand very loosely. There was this, there was pressure there and there was firmness, but it wasn't hurting me. And the lion was like guiding me where it wanted me to go by pulling my hand in its mouth. And so the lion was actually pulling me into it to lay down with it. So I lay down with this lion, and it was holding me. And so I just finally fully relaxed and just let this happen, where I'm being held by this lion and laying there. And then after a while, the lion walks off, and then the dream dissolves and goes into something else. But I woke up, and first of all, there are some dreams where it's just really visceral, where you can just feel things. And that was one of those dreams. And of course, the first thing I do is I wanted to look up, like, what does a lion symbolize? And we kind of all know the symbology of the lion. There's nothing that you don't know. So I want you to guess right now. What do you think are a few symbols of the lion? If you said courage, you're right. If you said sovereignty or majesty, you're right. If you said the strength to face a difficult situation, you're right. These are all the things that the lion symbolizes. Now, to break down what was happening in this dream, I feel like it was metaphoric. And it was first, this lion, these animals were flanking me, and they were big, strong animals. They were predatory animals, but they were protecting me and guiding me forward. So the first part of the message is that you are more protected than you know. Second part of the message is that the symbol of the lion is leading us. So he who works with the symbol of the lion is leading us forward. Now, in the dream, sometimes I have telepathic communication where I hear messages or I get more information. In this dream, it was more like I was dealing with it on like a mundane level. And so I was having to deal with my fear about where all this was going and trusting this animal next to me. So the way I interpret that part of the message is we are being led forward. We're being led through this really intense spiritual war. And the being leading us, this is a very fierce, courageous, majestic being, and it's guiding us forward through this energy. Part of what was scary about it is that you don't know where you're going. And yet, and on the other hand, you don't really know if this guiding force that's working with you is working in your favor or not, unless you trust it, unless you work with it. And the more that I decided to trust the animal, the more that it showed me it was there to protect me and to guide me in the right direction. But it really wasn't something you could assess just by being told. You had to listen deeply with your heart. You had to calm yourself down. You had to get out of fear, and you had to allow yourself to trust the situation as it moves you forward. And then it took me up. This energy, these animals took me up to higher levels. And I do believe that's where we're being guided now. So as we're watching the situation unfold in the world and just feeling the energy that's coming through for ascension, it is really intense. We are being guided. We're more protected than we know, but it's not being told to us specifically. It would be so much easier, right? If someone specifically said, I've got your back, you've got this. We can't get that in the scenario that we're in, mostly because would you believe it? Like, it's easy to say words, but actions tell the truth. And really, this was a message about the truth of the situation. The truth is you're more protected than you know. Truth is you're going to higher and higher levels of consciousness. The truth is you're being guided by your own courage, that you have the strength to go through this situation and the sovereignty. You are the leader in this scenario. That part of you is what's protecting and guiding you. And how can it tell you to, I've got your back and trust you, unless it's using you? So it's coming through your energy. It's coming through your words. It's coming through your mind and your heart in meditation. Right? This is the energy that's letting you know I've got your back and I'm guiding you. It's literally a higher, incredible version of you. But it just saying to you, I'm the good guy and I've got your back and I'm leading you in the right direction. That might feel good, but would you believe it? Would you believe it if you hear it? But if you let yourself be led, if you go into your heart, if you get out of fear and you go into your heart, and you trust where this energy is taking you, it's taking you higher and higher. And it's not going to look like what you think it should look like. It's not going to be obvious sometimes. Like I said in the dream, the lion, my first feeling was like, this is dangerous. It's a predator. I could get hurt. Like every step of the way in that journey was a choice point for me. I had to decide whether or not this was safe or not. And at some point I realized, like, the more that I focused on the fact that I am safe and that this is for my benefit, the more it proved to be the truth. All the way, like, it literally took me all the way up until the end of the dream, right, to figure out that this being here was protecting me. I had to learn how to quiet the fear in my mind and allow my heart to communicate in order to fully experience this, what felt like a truly kind of awe-inspiring moment. Because in my mind, everything was like, this is a real lion. This is my real life. I am literally laying down and being held by this lion. And it was like, I can't believe this is happening the whole time. But every single step of the way, I had to choose to trust that it's going to be okay. Like that moment where I think I felt the most vulnerable, it's like my hand in its mouth, and just knowing that at any moment it could just choose to bite it right off, and it didn't, right? And just staying in that place of, I'm not going into fear, I'm staying in trust, I'm staying calm, I'm staying peaceful and connected. I'm sending my intention out that I am not a threat, and I'm getting that energy back. So I feel like the team brings us up because we're going deeper and deeper into these final stages of right before, I mean, we're going into some intense energy. We're already there and it's going to intensify. And I don't say that again to be a fearmonger or frightened, because I don't believe you should be frightened. In fact, I feel the message is saying don't let into your fear. And when I pulled a card on it, the card that I got also said the same thing. It said, don't be deceived by your fear. The fear is that mental, really, it's the thought form of something else trying to invade your personal peace, right? We often talk about negative entity attachments, and what negative entities are 99.9% of the times is simply negative thought form that you've allowed in. You've allowed it into your mind and let it work on you, and that's all it has to be. And so it's saying don't give into that energy. Instead, go into the space of your heart. That means you have to actually calm yourself down first, right? To be able to be in our heart, our nervous system needs to be settled so that we can connect with that energy. And so it's practicing that feeling of like, rather than being afraid and reactive, I'm going to be connected and responsive. And know that you're being guided. There is a great spirit, a great energy around us. And there's literally, what's really interesting is that one of the symbols of the white hats is the lion. And they're the ones who are leading us forward through this spiritual ascension where we are leaving completely a lower paradigm and ascending into higher levels of consciousness. We want the lion to lead us, right? The lion is a great protector. It is fierce. It's the king of the jungle, right? But at the same time, it also represents your personal inner strength, that inner sovereignty and courage, and the courage to move forward. So I hope that you find that message resonant. We are moving higher. Never in my dreams when I'm being given messages about how things are moving forward, do things ever go down. It doesn't mean we don't have periods of something scary. Even that dream, which I think is a highly positive dream, had an element of fear to it. But the fear was, I hope I illustrated, was really in my own mind and my own thought processes and not about what was actually happening. I mean, let's face it, if it were a real scenario, if that lion wanted to eat me, all it would have to do is run at me and jump. Apparently, I was just like out in the open. So the fact that it didn't, the fact that instead of being attacked, it was guiding, is a really powerful and positive message. And the fear that you truly have to overcome is the fear that you carry in your mind. I know we're going to see some things, we do see some things, that things are happening that are quite fearful, but the whole idea of something like terrorism is to terrorize. It is to create more fear than what's actually there. And so when we choose to get out of our head with that and into our heart, where we have to calm ourselves and our nervous system to make full contact, then we've already overcome the biggest boogie monster that's ever out there. And that's sort of the thought of something fearful rather than something truly. I remember listening to Marianne Williamson's lectures when I was younger. She used to do these lectures and she put them on tape, and my mom had the tapes and I would listen to the tapes. And she often talked about like the fact that the idea of the devil, rather than it being a real manifestation, was much more scarier as a thought form and therefore much more potent. Because if it were real, then it would be out somewhere like, stalking in the jungle somewhere. It would be in a very specific location where it's out there, you're over here. But what's more scary is the idea of it stalking around the jungles of your mind, right? So the real thing we fear isn't something outside of us, but rather fear itself. And so we have this opportunity to move forward and know we're protected, and perhaps holding that energy of I am protected, I'm a sovereign being divinely guided towards my highest destiny, as a thought that can help you combat, overcome, get out of those fear thoughts, regulate your own nervous system, and get into your heart so you can truly see how divinely connected and always protected you are. And with that, let's look at this week's karma card. All right, so if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how they work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you feel in with a beautiful intuition of yours and think, what is it you need right now? Are you looking for action related guidance, or are you looking for outcomes? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for October 25th through November 1st. And the flavor of this reading, so we got another double. This is not common, but it's been happening more and more lately. So this time we got double planets, which is the first time that's happened. When we've got Pluto and Uranus coming up. These are 2 harder planets to get, so I'm a little interested to see what that's going to give us. But Pluto's a power planet. Uranus is a planet of change. Both of these tend to work in a very, they're a little bit more malefic sometimes in how they work. Uranus is back and forth, can be good, can be bad. Pluto also can be good, can be bad. It depends on how resistant you are to working with it. And we've got the sign of Sagittarius. We just started Scorpio season, but Sagittarius is coming up. But again, that's the energy of like higher consciousness, more expanded thinking. It represents part of the mind that's in higher levels of thought. In the 6th house, which is the house of work and health and service. So this will be interesting. All right, so for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to resurrect and stir up the situation by using your highest ideals as a full-time job. Boom. That speaks so nicely to the message that came through in the dream. Your highest ideals, right? The lion would also represent that. The lion's represents a type of higher awareness, because the lion represents sovereignty. It represents, that I am self-ruled energy. I am the king or the queen. So the highest ideals as a full-time job. So it's high. We're being asked to really live in our higher mind. Hi, Skippy. We're being asked to live in that higher mind. So again, we're not in the lower energy of fear. We're in the higher, more connected state. We're connected more to our higher self, as well as our higher awareness, which gives us a really nice bird's eye view of the situation. We're being asked to really practice staying there. So we've all had moments where we've touched on that or we've visited it, but now we're being asked to the more we're introduced to fearful ideas, the way that we combat that personally is by going back to our higher self, back to the highest timeline, back to the bigger perspective, back to unity consciousness. These are the things we keep moving back to, and you treat it like it's your job, because right now on a spiritual level it most definitely is. All right, mental action at this time: get to the heart of and be open to new ideas about the rules of serving. So they want us to really tap into, what does it mean to be of service? There are so many ways that we can go with this, but one of the things I want you to remember that my team has definitely hit on a lot is that to be to service to others has to include you. So many times people who lean towards service to others, which would be you, because that's who I'm speaking to. You have a tendency to lean in that direction. You want to be helpful. You want to, work together. You want to work for the good of all. You have to remember to include yourself. That's one of the pitfalls of those who are very service to others focused, is sometimes we leave ourselves out. And if we're leaving ourselves out, it's not complete. The circle is not complete. We're not in full connection. So number one, make sure it includes you. That's why we have rules like put your own oxygen mask on first so you can help other people, right? So Make sure you're taking good care of yourself. Make sure that you are remembering that it has to also be good for you. So we're looking for the win-win here, not a win for others and a loss for yourself, but a win-win. So nurture yourself, take good care of yourself. As much as you're concerned about the well-being of others, make sure you're equally as concerned about your well-being and putting that as a priority so that you have the strength to be of service to others, right? We're no good when we're burnt out, worn out, run down, getting ill because we're so worried about everything that's going on. Another rule about being of service is that we want to make sure that we're doing it from a place where it's not transactional. I go into that in some of the other karma cards, but again, remember, it's not about I'm doing this so that I get this. It's I just want to give this. Just remember that true service is not transactional. It's simply because you see a need and you're filling it. But again, make sure you're taking care of your needs so that you're able to fill that need for another. Physical action at this time, do or die. Invent a way to get out into the world and do it a little at a time. So do or die, that's Pluto. It's like now, right? It's like do it now or miss the opportunity. And Uranus is the one that's like, get creative about it. How can you get out in the world and do it a little bit at a time? So how can you send that energy, that helpful and healing energy out into the world and a little bit at a time? So again, this isn't telling you you have to fix everything or that you have to do things dramatically. It's saying do it practically, right? So it might be sharing an insight that you have, or it might be holding space for someone where you feel grounded and they're not grounded. There's so many different ways that we can do it, but this is the opportunity. We are in the game. The game is full on and playing, and you are on the game board and you are a game piece in this big game. So the moves that you're making, no matter how big or small, are having a ripple effect and influencing the game at large. So number one, know that nothing that we do right now isn't tracking. And what I mean by that, in case you're like, so many big things are happening, what can I do about it? There's more than you can do than you know. One of those major things that you can do is keep your heart open. Keeping your heart open and keeping that energy flowing, right? This just doesn't mean letting people take advantage of you. But the heart is like, what can I do to open my heart back up? If I feel it closing, if I feel it getting tight, if I feel the anger, hatred, resentment, whatever coming in, how do I open it back up? Just that action alone has a huge impact on the game board, because remember, ascension is coming through the open hearts. So the more hearts that are open, the faster this comes through. So get creative about how you keep your heart open. What opens your heart for you? Is it thinking about people you love? Is it spending time in nature? Is it spending time with animals? Is it making art? Is it being able to share your feelings? What keeps your heart open? Focus on that. And now is the time. All right. Now let's look at outcomes for Pluto and Uranus in Sagittarius in the 6th house of health and service. The spiritual outcome at this time is the need for control of an unusual example of insights to understand service to others. What I'm getting is that we're really going to want to get this. The more intense things are, the more I need to get this, right? And it's like, how do I do it? Like, if it's not coming to you and there's a desire to like grasp it, all that's telling me is that maybe right now at this time, the mind becomes really fixated on, okay, if I'm affecting this game board, I need to know how to do it. I need to have a plan. I need to understand how this works. And the answer to that is simply to simplify. But that urge is there, right? Like, well, things are hitting the fan. I want to have control of this energy now. I want to have an impact right now. And so we've just got to be careful of that sort of black and white, really intense energy that comes through, or like the overthinking process seems to be kicking in a little bit here. That's what I'm getting. Mental outcome at this time, an obsession with a different way of looking at the wisdom of what is good for us. I feel like this is connected to that eclipse energy that's coming up on Saturday. Like I said, it's the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one. And with this, again, there is this fixation on trying to get it. And specifically, it's almost like we're trying to understand the energy that's coming before it gets here, before we have the experience of it. So there's this little bit of like over analyzing that's coming in. There's a lot of cards in here that represent the mind energy. I mean, they all have sort of an impact. Like, for example, sixth house is ruled by Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury, the planet of the mind. Sagittarius representing connection to the higher mind. Uranus, which is connected to Aquarius, which is the higher mind, right? So many mind cards in here. So there is a little bit of this, I'm trying to work it out with my mind, and it's more abstract than the mind can handle right now. Like, what is to come isn't fully seen yet, right? It hasn't fully materialized. It's coming, and we're definitely influencing it, but trying to get a handle on it before you've even seen it is almost a futile task. And so we're trying to get this handle on the understanding of service to others in a new way, the wisdom of service to others in this new, more expanded way. And again, our mind isn't quite ready for it yet. There's so much more. There's so much more to understand about it than the mind can grasp at the conscious level. So when you feel yourself grappling with that energy, you're really trying to understand it because you just have to get it. Practice lightening up or easing off. Remember, it's like I don't have to cognizantly get it. Just like in my dream, I couldn't get a telepathic connection where I was getting instruction. All I could do was choose to be in fear or be at peace. And so I constantly had to like remind myself, okay, if I go into fear, perhaps this animal will turn on me. But if I can stay calm and if I can stay in a place of peace, then I can maintain whatever's going on. And it was a moment by moment thing. So we just have to remind ourselves that at this exact moment, we're going to be maybe a little obsessed with trying to figure this out. How do we get out of these situations? How do we get to a place of peace? How do we understand each other more and get the nuance in? And again, we need to just take it moment by moment and make a simpler choice. What are you in fear, or are you in a place where you feel more safe and grounded and connected to something higher? Make it a simpler choice. Go with one of those paths and let it lead you. It's going to show itself to you. But right in this moment, we're not going to have that grasp on it that I think we really desire to. Physical outcome at this time, a power struggle and an unexpected change resulting from the understanding of your work. And I really feel like the work that they're alluding to this time isn't the physical work we do, which normally this would represent. It's more of the soul mission work that you're here to do. So again, as we're watching things play out and unfold and how we have to continuously move forward during this very unsure time, I'm sure that there's a struggle that comes up in people. Like, why would I choose this? There's so many memes I'm seeing right now where it's like, it'll show this really calm or angelic person, and it'll be like, this is me on my spiritual self, me, like this calm, trusting, at peace version. And then it'll say also me, and it's this like demon looking like warrior god thing, right? So it's representing that the spiritual being can represent both of these energies, or to be on a spiritual path or a spiritual awakening path, you feel both. There isn't this, I think that some of us, or at least I know I do, hold this ideal that I'm going to be this serene person, and it's not always that way. It's like sometimes I'm okay with how things are unfolding and how they're happening because I know this has to happen to move forward, and other times I'm obviously very not okay and I'm over it and I'm done and let's move forward. Like, why do we have to do this part, right? Everybody sort of swinging back and forth between these two. So that's showing up here, as well as, like, again, there's more clarity on its way from your higher self about your mission, why you are here. And we have similar missions, but not necessarily the same. And so it's not about, hey, what's that person doing? I can kind of see what they're doing. Let me be that. It's not that, because we're all here to raise the frequency up, but we're all going to do it in different ways. We all brought different skill sets and tools and talents to the table to help get this job done. And there's no path that's better than another. There is simply your path, my path, and the path that we take together. And so it's going to get you to think about that. It's like, do I have to do this in the way I've seen it done? Because none of that comes naturally to me. Like, how do I get out there and fulfill what I feel like is my soul mission? I don't want to start a YouTube channel, or I don't want to, talk or lecture to people, or I don't want to drop memes or constantly post anywhere, or I don't want to go to crystal shops or use those kind of tools. Obviously, these are just some examples. I'm just pulling them out of the top of my head. But nothing is requiring that you do any of that in order to be on your spiritual mission. You've already got the tools. You actually have the agenda or the itinerary inside of you. It's with you. So whatever you're doing now, you're probably already more on track than you know. And it's just really allowing more of that authentic self to come through. The more you do that, the more obvious it's going to be about how you're helping. And again, like I said, everything that you're doing counts. It's affecting the game as you're doing it. So even if you think you're doing the most mundane thing, think again, because the energy with how you're doing it is affecting the game. And so the more you can be in a place of love or alignment or peace or strength or grounding, the more positive your impact is. And you've got to figure out what brings that to you, rather than trying to do it in a prescribed way. There's just your way. And again, that lion in my dream represents that higher self, something bigger than you. That higher energy is with you. It's guiding you. We don't always understand it, and sometimes it can be really hard to communicate with, but nevertheless, it's by your side, it's taking care of you, and it's got your back. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Mwah. Have a beautiful week, and I hope to see you at the Spirit Circle on Saturday. Bye.